The Philadelphia Eagles offense was broken. It was stale, it was predictable, and it was quite frankly an embarrassment to watch as the 2025 season withered away into a total catastrophe. Fans were screaming for a change, and for a long time, it felt like those pleas were falling on deaf ears. But something changed this spring. The atmosphere in Philadelphia shifted entirely. The air at the facility during OTAs and mandatory minicamp felt different, sharper, more focused, and dare I say, revitalized. Before we dive in, smash that subscribe button if you want the fastest NFL updates on the planet. What we are witnessing right now isn't just a minor tweak to the playbook, it is a full-scale renovation of the identity of this football team. The rumors that started as whispers in the locker room have now become the reality of the 2026 season's foundation. We are seeing a complete schematic overhaul that aims to turn this unit from a clunky, head-scratching mess back into a juggernaut. But the real story isn't just about the XS and OS. It's about the man at the center of it all. You might think you know what's coming, but the intensity of the feedback from the veterans on this team is something that should honestly terrify the rest of the NFC. Is this the final piece of the puzzle that finally pushes Jalen Hurts back to his absolute peak? Or is this just another false hope for a city that has suffered enough heartbreak? Drop a name in the comments below. Who do you think is actually to blame for the offensive regression we saw last year? To understand why everyone from Lane Johnson to Jalen Hurts is acting like they've just been handed the keys to a brand new high-performance engine, you have to look at the philosophy being installed. We are talking about the Kellen Moore-influenced, modern, quarterback-friendly system. This isn't the vanilla, hope the talent makes a play offense of last year. This is a West Coast-based, rhythm-driven, timing-obsessed machine. For those who remember the Andy Reid era, the visual indicators are already there. Jalen Hurts is living under center again. We are seeing purposeful motion, actual misdirection that forces linebackers to freeze, and an outside zone running game that is specifically designed to marry the run and the pass. It is fluid. It is aggressive. And most importantly, it is finally creative. But wait until you hear exactly how the players are describing the coaching change, because their words suggest a level of frustration with the previous regime that no one dared to speak aloud until now. For the past couple of years, the Eagles' offense often looked like it was playing with one hand tied behind its back. Sure, there were flashes of brilliance. How could there not be with that level of talent? But it was disjointed. Last year, in particular, was a grind. It was a monotonous slog through a system that relied too heavily on individual brilliance rather than collective scheme. They were predictable. Defensive coordinators were reading the Eagles like a children's book because there was no deception, no why behind the movement. It was all just visual noise. When you look at the 2024 season, the Eagles boasted one of the most terrifying rushing attacks in modern history. That should have been the baseline. Yet they allowed themselves to drift back into that stagnant 2023-style offensive structure where the plays were so obviously signaled that you could practically hear the opposing linebackers calling out the assignments before the ball was snapped. It was frustrating for the players, it was painful for the fans, and it was unsustainable for a Super Bowl-caliber roster. Now, contrast that with what we are seeing in 2026. This spring, the Eagles spent 16 practices across OTAs and minicamp, and the difference in tone is night and day. You have to understand, Jalen Hurts is a coach's son. He has been groomed in the systems of Nick Saban and Lincoln Riley. He knows when an offensive coordinator has a coherent plan, and he knows when they are just winging it. When Jalen Hurts stands in front of a microphone and says that he and his new coordinator have hit it off and that he can finally see the vision, he isn't just being nice. He is signaling a massive departure from the past. You didn't hear this level of confidence or clarity from him regarding the previous play-calling situation. And Lane Johnson, a man who has been in the trenches for 14 years, flat out admitted that he's been envying this style of offense for a long time. These guys are hungry for a system that actually leverages their collective intelligence, and they feel like they have finally found it. But don't get too comfortable just yet. Because as we look at the way this offense is being reshaped, there's a massive conversation happening about how they plan to handle the ball distribution. Without A.J. Brown being the focal point of every single snap, This team has a chance to be more dangerous, not less. Think about it. Last year, the offense often looked worse when they were force-feeding the ball to one guy. It became a chore to get everyone involved. The new approach is designed to force the defense to account for every single skill player on the field, not just the one wearing number 11. It's about creating mismatches. It's about using motion, not just for eye candy, but to move defenders out of their assigned lanes so that an open throwing lane magically appears. We are seeing more routes crossing the middle, more utilization of the depth of the receiver room, and a renewed commitment to efficiency over brute force. It's a high-stakes gamble. If this scheme clicks, the Eagles could be looking at a top 3 offense in the entire league. If it stumbles, it will be because the learning curve for such a complex, rhythm-based system proved to be too steep. But the chemistry is all.
It really dictates the defense.
Jalen Hurts is asking the right questions, and he's getting the right answers. That relationship, the rapport between the quarterback and the brain trust of this offense, is going to be the defining factor of this entire season. Now, we have to address the elephant in the room, the defensive side of the ball. Because while the offense is getting a facelift, the addition of Rick Woolen to the secondary is making waves that haven't been seen in Philadelphia in years. If the offense is the story of a rebirth, the arrival of Rick Woolen is the story of a defensive awakening. When you talk to the people who are on the field during those spring practices, they don't just talk about him as a good acquisition. They talk about him like he's the missing piece of a championship secondary. The physical metrics are off the charts. You're looking at 6'4", 200-pound frame that moves with the fluidity of a wide receiver. Throughout the spring, he was blanketing elite talent, staying in lockstep with guys like Devonta Smith on deep routes, and showing the kind of closing speed that is practically unfair. There was a specific play during camp where he nearly tracked down an overthrown deep ball. The kind of speed that forces a quarterback to fundamentally change his decision-making process because he realizes he simply cannot throw the ball in that area of the field. But what really stood out to the veteran observers wasn't just the athleticism, it was the grit. He wasn't afraid to get physical. He was challenging for every inch of grass. He neutralized top-tier receivers in tight red zone windows, and he played with a chip on his shoulder that feels perfectly aligned with the personality of this city. There were moments where he was so aggressive that he was practically daring the officials to throw a flag, showing a confidence that you only see from corners who know they are the best athlete on the field. The scouting report on him coming in was about potential, but the reality on the field has been about consistency. He has displayed a focus that many weren't sure he possessed. If this version of Woolen is who we get in the regular season, that $12 million contract is going to look like the steal of the decade. In an era where top-tier corners are pulling down $20 to $30 million a year, getting a shutdown guy who can neutralize an opponent's number 2 wide receiver, a position that haunted the Eagles all last year, is the kind of move that wins playoff games. But wait, there's another name that has been generating quiet, under-the-radar buzz, a player who might just change the math for how the Eagles use their running backs this season. We have to talk about Tank Bigsby. While everyone was busy watching the stars, the movement on the field when Bigsby had the ball in his hands was impossible to ignore. His acceleration is violent. He doesn't dance in the backfield. He is a one-cut, north-south runner who gets to the second level before the defense realizes what's happening. Last year, when the rushing attack stalled, you could see the frustration. Saquon Barkley is a spectacular talent, but sometimes you need a different flavor. A change-of-pace runner who can pick up those tough, ugly yards when the outside zone is getting clogged. The coaching staff seems to have realized this. There's a vision being formed where you can utilize Barkley's unique versatility, maybe even putting him in the slot to pull a linebacker out of the box, and then handing the rock to Bigsby to punish a defense that is already stretched too thin. It's a creative approach, and it's one that could push Bigsby toward 100 total touches this year. That is a massive jump from where he was. But given the way this new system emphasizes ball distribution, it is exactly the kind of weapon that makes a play caller's life infinitely easier. So, where does this leave us as we head toward the dead period before training camp? We are looking at a team that has finally decided to stop playing it safe. The Eagles are betting on a complete overhaul of their identity. They are leaning into speed, into deception, in a high IQ football, and into a more diversified talent pool. The pressure is obviously going to be immense. When you make these kinds of changes, there is nowhere to hide. If the offense is still clunky, if the secondary still gets burned on the outside, if the movement remains just eye candy rather than something with real bite, the questions are going to come fast and hard. But the energy right now suggests that they aren't looking at the past. They aren't looking at the collapses. They are building something that is designed to exploit the weaknesses of every defense they face. The 2026 season for the Philadelphia Eagles isn't just about winning games. It's about proving that they haven't lost their edge. They're in a race to see how fast they can install this new, complex machine before the lights turn on in July. It's a transition that could either lead to a total masterpiece of a season or a series of growing pains that define a turning point in the franchise's history. When the team reports to training camp, all of these narratives, the new schematic philosophy, the emergence of the secondary, the deeper rotation of the running backs, will collide. The questions will finally be answered, and the hype will be put to the test. Will Jalen Hurts be the one to orchestrate this renaissance? Or will the weight of the expectations be too much to carry? The foundation is laid. The players are bought in. Now it's just a matter of seeing if they can turn that spring progress into a sustained, winning reality. The story of the 2026 Philadelphia Eagles is just beginning to be written. And if this spring is any indication, it is going to be one of the most unpredictable and high-octane chapters yet. Keep your eyes on the movement, watch for the rotation in the backfield, and see if that new defensive pressure translates when the pads finally come on. The stage is set, the tension is palpable, and for the first time in a long time, there is a genuine, electrifying sense of mystery about exactly what this team is going to look like when the whistle blows for Week 1. The wait is almost over, and the outcome is going to be anything but boring.